Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic.
Professionals, what is your industry's version of bring me blinker fluid or find a snipe? I used to work in a diesel engine manufacturing plant. We would send new people to the parts cage to get spark plugs. When I was in the army, I kept the LT's Humvee deadlined for a month because the backup lights didn't work. I may get this a little wrong because it's my dad's story, but when he was in the army they would send the new guy to get the PRC-E7, pronounced prick E7, from the platoon sergeant, whose rank was also known as E7. So my dad walks to his desk and says that he was told to find the prick E7. The sergeant, who was in on it, proceeds to yell and cuss at him for a while. Well yeah, they would have had to fill out an ID tent form first. For those who don't know, diesel engines don't have spark plugs. Thank you, I was very confused. When I was in the Marine Corps, I was in the air wing as a repair squadron as a tin bender. My sergeant told me to go to the supply building and get 100 feet of flight line. I already knew about this since my buddy worked in supply. So I said, "Sir, yes sir," and just spent 2 hours hanging out with buddy. When I get back I pretend to be confused and he has a good laugh. Win all around. I was Air Force and the same thing out on the flight line. The prank wars were so damn funny. I miss it so much. Putting grease on the senior NCO's coffee mug rim, undoing bolts in his office chair so as soon as he would sit it would fall apart and bust his ass. Then he would do the same thing to us randomly throughout the year along with the goose chases for the new guys. Good times. Meanwhile HR told us we couldn't have a pie the boss raffle for charity because senior staff might feel pressured to participate, then be subjected to abuse and ridicule. It'd be enough to make me want to re-enlist if it weren't for gestures broadly at the world all this stuff. I was newly assigned to a unit in the army and me and another E4 got tasked to clean a classroom after a training session. He says, "Go down to supply and ask Sergeant Chico for some floor cleaner." I said okay, went down to supply and asked Chico for it and he said, "We don't have any specific floor cleaner, do you want simple green?" We finally decided to both walk back upstairs to get clarification. E4 sees us walk in and starts laughing like he's going to piss himself. Eventually just gasps, "There's no such thing as floor cleaner," and leaves the room still laughing. Chico looks at me and says, "Is he a re*road or something?" I said I didn't know because I was new here. So many possibilities for imaginary items in the military and he comes up with something that exists. I worked at Best Buy in college and we would have tell the new guy that when they clocked out they needed to hit number 19 on the desk phone and say they were leaving for the day, what they accomplished, and their favorite part of the day. We told him it was an automated time and labor tool that automatically clocked him out. Really it called the store's intercom system and blared it over the loudspeakers for everyone in the store. Pretty embarrassing and gave all the rest of us a good chuckle. The best part, it was delayed so they typically made it all the way across the store until it started to play back. That's hilarious. We once told 2 lieutenant baby pilots that they were about to talk to their career manager, but they all had to be brief and that she was listening. So they had to say their name and rank, what they had learned at our squadron, and what type of aircraft they wanted to fly when they grew up, got trained. So we would dial the PA system of the squadron next door and handed them the phone so they could all say their part one after the other. God, that's brutal. This isn't going to all fit, go get the shelf stretcher. I've worked in retail, so I've used this one myself. We used to tell the new people to go ask the store manager for keys to the parking lot. Me setting up gas, airlines in the prenatal chemistry lab, "Hey new kid, go get me a roll of fallopian tubing." I saw this happen and the guy came back with a female co-worker and said, "Sir, here is 2 rolls of fallopian tubing, still in the package." Quote. Best response. Alternatively, be a woman and say, "I got your fallopian tubing right here," and gesture rudely at your lower abdomen. Send the apprentice to get the wire stretcher. Have the apprentice hold a bucket under a cut cable to catch the extra amps that leak out. It's a bucket of ohms, to hold all the voltage drops. My grandpa said when they were teenagers they'd dial random numbers and claim to be calling from the phone company, saying the company was cleaning the lines and would instruct the person on the other end to put their handset in a plastic bag for the next 6 hours to catch all the ohm dust so it didn't make a mess in their house. I work on an airfield. We have the new guys stand outside holding a piece of printer paper above their heads at night so the air traffic controllers can calibrate the light gun. It's literally just a fancy flashlight. We had one guy stand out there for almost 20 minutes before he realized we were messing with him. You reminded me of a situation where I thought I was being hazed but not at all. I was working on test bench for the A350 and someone told me that we were out of paper for the cockpit printer. I didn't know there was a printer in the cockpit and the dude had to literally show me the printer so that I could believe him. I still wouldn't have. Well, I know exactly what my airfield ops intern is doing tonight. When I worked at Pizza Hut in the 90s, we would send the new driver to another Pizza Hut to get our cheese grater. We would call ahead and that store would send him to KFC, KFC would send him to Burger King. I don't recall it going farther than that. We had the dough repair kit at Papa John's. Had a driver from another store show up for it and I told them he was being fucked with and he quit on the spot. I don't blame him either, LMAO. Yeah, it's one thing to do it to a store employee there hourly and get compensated for driving since it's out of the normal capacity. The actual drivers in this situation just get shafted pay and time, don't blame him either, lol. Working at a McDonald's in the mid to late 1990s, we'd sent the new employees out into the lobby to water the numerous plants in the entire seating area. They were all fake plants. Mop the freezer. We did this at McDonald's too. They'd always rush back to us, the mop froze to the floor. Aluminum magnets, left-handed screwdriver for the left-handed thread. I worked at a factory that pulled the aluminum magnet thing. The best part was everyone was in on it. When new guy came up to you, you'd say, "Oh, I gave that to Bill, who's on the other side of the building." Walk over to Bill. "Oh, I put that back in the supply room. On the other side of the building, supply room guy, Mary just checked that out, she's somewhere far away." You get where this is going. They had one guy going for over an hour. Sounds like my average day tracking down the actual shit I'm trying to get from the parts room. Metric crescent wrench. For the military version of this, has a new guy who knows the joke ever just said, "Yes, sir," and then gone off fucking around for a few hours. Yes, in 1977 I was sent to get a bucket of striped paint. I was a 19-year airman general hand working in an RAF fighter squadron, and was treated as if I was a fool. I took the order, goofed off in the airman's barracks for 2 hours, had a snooze and watched TV, and eventually returned with a tin of yellow paint I scrounged from the paint shop boys. The corporal I was taking orders from asked about the stripes. I replied, "They only have yellow stripes." I was still treated as if I was a fool, but I had my petty revenge. The grown-up version of taking the nickel instead of the dime. We had this know-it-all E4 who had gotten promoted at school and our ship was his first command. He shows up and is just generally being a pain in the ass, but he had heard most of the usual fool's errands, roll of flight line, exhaust samples, ID10T form, etc. So we knew we needed something good. Enter our wizened E6LPO. Dude starts talking to this kid about troubleshooting. The kid is, of course, an expert in all things mechanical, electronic, electrical. Dude tells him about this issue our colleagues in engineering are having with their Cheng, that it's malfunctioning, suspects that it's a mechanical issue and asks the kid if he can calibrate a torque wrench and head down to engineering to tighten the nuts on the Cheng. Kid is fired up, "Sure thing, petty officer." Dude gives the kid a little 10 in LB torque wrench and tells him to calibrate it, then head down a few decks to get to work. About an hour later the kid comes back up to the shop, absolutely mortified. He found out that the Cheng was the ship's chief engineer and he told him to come back with the biggest wrench he had because his nuts were huge. This is beautiful. Heard a story, could be rumor could be true, of someone being told to get 10 more feet of flight line. But it was, like, an E5 or officer or someone with some experience and weight. He was gone all week. Came back and they asked where he was. Turns out he'd gone up the chain, did the paperwork and came back with the petty revenge of having actually extended the runway, flight line by 10 feet. He was not fucked with again. It's been a long time since I heard that, so the details are clearly fuzzy. Go grab the box of f-stops from the camera bag. These C-47s aren't doing it. We need C-48s. For the curious, a C-47 is literally a wooden spring-loaded clothespin, the exact kind you would use to hang clothes on the line, which is used to hold diffusion and gels on lights. Basically, production accountants started getting mad at grips for spending so much on clothespins, so they started calling them C-47s on the PO requests, and that got them to stop asking. This shot is too dark. Pour some more ISO on it. FYI, a snipe is a bird. So one could find a snipe. Snipes are famously hard to hunt. They get spooked real easy and would have unpredictable flight patterns. That's where the words sniping and later on sniper come from. https://en.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/snipe. I was fully expecting a "no gullible in the dictionary" style joke. I got a Wikipedia page for an actual bird. 2 cans of steam. My buddy confused the heck out of a trainee in the kitchen by, during a rush, frantically telling him to go and get 2 cans of steam from the back. We asked a food runner trainee to get us a bucket of steam during dinner rush and he went and filled a bucket with hot water and poured the hot water out. There was steam left in the bucket. Not a restaurant, but was in food service in high school. One guy loved asking newbies to get him a bucket of steam. One finally ran a bucket through the dishwasher upside down and brought it to him like that, so it was filled with steam. Snarky. Reminds me when someone asked me for the biggest glass of water they could get and I brought them the ice bucket full of water with some ice on top. And a straw. Gotta make sure they check the expiration under the can. Nothing worse than stale, expired steam. We used to send the FNG to the back to get the henway. They would come back and say, "What's a henway?" Quote, "About 3 or 4 pounds." Quote, "I've had a FNG circulate air out of the freezer, on a slow day, by gathering it in a trash bag and releasing it outside.